Chuck Engborg now has a question. It will be directed to Mr. Hodes on Social Security.
Fixing the long-term Social Security and Medicare solvency will require bipartisan solutions. Do you think bipartisan solutions on the two programs are possible, given the deep divisions and gridlock within Congress? How would you propose to bridge these divisions and ensure Social Security benefits are not cut in an attempt to reduce the deficit?
Chuck, thanks for the question. I've made sure that on all the legislation that I've proposed, I always find a bipartisan sponsorship because I think it's important to work both sides. Recently, as you know, Senators Gregg and Conrad proposed in the Senate a bipartisan deficit reduction commission. It was supported by many Republicans who, when it came to a vote, walked away from it and tried to blame my party for the problem. The president now has a deficit reduction commission, which is bipartisan, which will deliver a report in December, and we're going to have to take a look at that and make the tough choices to preserve and strengthen Social Security. Cannot cut Social Security by 20% like my opponent has proposed doing. We cannot privatize Social Security. We can't leave it up to Wall Street to decide how folks are going to be protected. And I'm very reluctant to say to people who are in the system or just coming into the system, we're going to raise your retirement age. How can I look a mill worker in Berlin in the eye? Somebody whose body is broken, has been working all his life, and is expecting to get the benefits he deserves and say, you ought to raise your age. My opponent opposed the Deficit Reduction Commission. I don't know why, but she's opposed the Deficit Reduction Commission, and I suppose your question leads to a good question for her. Why on earth, Ms. Ayotte, would you oppose the Deficit Reduction Commission, which Senator Gregg had a hand in setting up? That's the way towards a bipartisan solution.
Ms. Ayotte, 115.
Congressman Hodes, why on earth, since you've been in Congress, have, based on the votes and your party and what you've supported, why has the deficit increased over 500%? And why are we in a position where the budget has increased over 50%? The reality is that your votes, since you've been in Congress, the debt has increased from $8 trillion to $13 trillion. You voted just last year for over 9,000 earmarks. You voted for spending program after spending program in Washington, and yet now you want to turf it off to a commission instead of standing up and making the hard decisions in Congress. And that's what it means to make sure that we have fiscal responsibility in this country. And again, your record is not one that supports someone who's really going to get our country on a fiscally responsible path.
Scott, give me 1 second here. You know, facts are stubborn things. When President Clinton left office, we had a budget surplus of some $250 billion and a balanced federal budget. That was the year 2000. When President Obama raised his hand, we had $1.3 trillion in deficits created under George Bush and the Republican policies of borrow, spend, and waste. So let's deal with facts, not fiction. As it happens, I voted against raising the debt limit, and I'm the only member of the New Hampshire delegation who's actually proposed a net decrease in federal spending, and that's according to the National Taxpayers Union, a bipartisan group of folks. So let's deal with facts, not fiction.
Congressman Hodes, we will deal with facts, and the facts are that since you've been a member of Congress and your party has been in charge of the purse strings, the deficit has increased 500%. The debt has gone from $8 trillion to $13 trillion. And frankly, we are on a spending path going forward under this president's proposed budgets where we're going to see for years to come trillion-dollar-plus deficits. And those are the facts. And frankly, your record is not one that supports someone who's going to get our fiscal house in order.
I suppose that's a good reason not to give tax cuts to millionaires and billionaires that would hurt our deficit by $700 billion.
You'd like to give $700 billion more so that that can be spent in Washington instead of allowing our businesses and our small businesses right now who need the help, the dollars in their pocket to get people to work. Make no mistake, those tax cuts, a $300 million hit, is what will result to New Hampshire if he is elected.
So the choice is really clear. You say give $700 billion of tax breaks to millionaires and billionaires that drives our deficit deeper into a hole. I say there's a clear choice. We need to give middle-class families tax help, and we need to give support and help to our small businesses so they can create jobs. It's a very clear choice.
Well, Congressman Hodes, you say you support the middle class, yet You left Congress without even voting on the tax rates for anyone in this country. So those middle-class individuals, all of us in this room, we're a small business family, my husband Joe and I. None of us know what our tax rates are going to be because you didn't even take a vote on that before you left to go home and campaign.
Let me jump